Hello, everyone. Like my peers before me, I am also a first-year Lang 120 student. I am taking the course with Dr. Shepard. We had an assignment where we had to do an inquiry project about happiness in general. So I had a meeting with her. I didn't want to do the project. I was like, I don't know what to write about. She goes, why don't you write about animals? I was like, cool, I can do that. So this presentation is going to be regarding awareness to a topic that's a little bit sensitive to some people. I'm going to be talking about the abuse and maltreatment in the meat and dairy industries of the United States. There's going to be a little bit of graphic imagery and language, so if that makes anybody uncomfortable, there's going to be a slide ahead of the one with the gross pictures that says, hey, there's going to be gross pictures, don't look if you're squeamish. All right. So the definition of happiness is a state of being happy, of feeling or being content. And typically happiness is regarded as a human thing. Emotions are a human thing. But when we look at livestock, they have emotions too. We see our domesticated animals, and they're different, and we recognize a little bit more typically than we do with livestock that they're emotional. I mean, we see cats and dogs and puppies and kittens, and we're like, ooh, cute animals, great, cool. Cows, pigs, horses, etc., they feel emotions too. In a 2009 Newcastle University study, we discovered that cows are more than capable of feeling the same emotions that humans do. Verbal affirmations led to an increase of milk production in the cattle. Dr. Catherine Douglas, the school's lead researcher, explained that just as people respond to personal touch and affirmation, the cattle, when placing more importance on their individual selves, leads to increased milk production. The study considered 516 dairy farms across the United Kingdom, and in the farmers who called their cattle by their name and pet their cows had over a 258-liter higher milk yield. And then another study done by a Netherlands university reported similar results. So if our livestock feel for us, towards humans and towards their peers, the same way that we do, why is it permitted that there's such rampant abuse in the industry? This is what we think. We see dairy cows, look at them, they're happy, they're having a swell time. Is that the way it is? No. Let me talk to you about Kaplan Industries. It's 70 miles southwest of Orlando. It's a meat packing plant, and I mean, small town, like a place where I come from. I come from outside of Charlotte. It's outside of Orlando, a little bit further than my hometown. But aside from that, a normal place. Is it? Maybe not. Gail Eidsnitz was the lead investigator of the humane farming industry, and she led an expose on Kaplan Industries in Florida that is unlike any we have seen since Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. Sinclair's The Jungle led to Congress passing the Clean Food and Drug Act, and it was discussing in the early 1900s meatpacking industry corruption and, abuse. Some pretty gross stuff was going on. Rats in the meat. People don't want to eat rats. It was happening. So Upton Sinclair was like, we can't let this happen. He wrote a book about it. Gail Eidsnitz got a letter from this guy, Timothy Walker. He was working for the USDA. He was a Kaplan worker. He was pretty new to his job. He reported some fairly horrific maltreatment of the animals that were in the plant being processed, and Gail was like, guess we better check this out. She found some pretty horrific stuff, and what Walker was telling everybody was completely accurate. He had been working for 364 days for the United States Department of Agriculture. When you work for a full year for the USDA, essentially you cannot be fired. He had been working 364. He wrote the letter to Gail. It got to his superiors. He was fired the day before he reached his immunity. Not cool in the slightest. So why are we letting this happen? Well, there's a little bit thing that we experience here in America called greed. The North American Meat Industry's annual report claimed that the United States meat industry alone flooded the economy with $864.2 billion in 2013 alone. That's not including the dairy industry or other agriculture industries that we experience here in America. Purdue, Monsanto, Omaha, these corporations, oftentimes their CEOs are involved in the USDA. The CEO of Purdue a few years back was the one of the very high up superior members of the United States Department of Agriculture. How are we supposed to be upholding our legislature, protecting us from these companies, if our companies are the people who are supposed to be protecting us? It doesn't work that way. So Upton Sinclair discovered this corruption in the 1900s. Why is it still going on today? So next slide's gonna be gross. Don't look at it, it freaks you out. This is what's actually happening in our meat and dairy industries. Timothy Walker, when he informed Gail of what was happening, Gail was fairly stressed out, as one would be. We're gonna move on. You can look again. There is not only severe amounts of endangerment for the animals in the plant, they are not being processed ethically in a sustainable way, but there's problems for humans and the environment itself. Cattle in the Kaplan plant alone were being skinned alive, branded alive, etc. Gross things that should not be happening to an animal. Why was this happening? Corruption. Cattle and other livestock are stunned before they are brought onto the kill floor, so they are not aware of their surroundings when they're being essentially slaughtered. However, the voltage level of a stun gun that is used to incapacitate the animals, if it is at the proper amount of voltage, it will bruise the meat. And the plant workers don't like that because that brings the meat value down. Here we come back full circle to greed yet again. They turn the voltage down, the animals come through the chain alive. That's not, an okay thing that happens. And aside from the maltreatment of the animals that is being experienced in these plants, it endangers the workers as well. If you have a, half a ton animal thrashing its way on the line above your head as you are working, it is bound to fall on you. This happened to one of Timothy Walker's friends. A cow fell on him and he broke his arm and he complained and was fired. There are no such thing as, what's the thing, when workers get together and they're like, a union? There's no such thing as unions in the meatpacking industries of America. Corruption, ladies and gentlemen, at its finest. Let's move. Oh, we're going back, actually. So there's this dude named Charlie LeDuff. He's a reporter for the New York Times. He started getting interested in political food science and the agriculture industries of America, and also social justice. So he was like, why don't we look into this endangerment of workers in the plants, So here we are, little old North Carolina. He goes to Tar Heel, and there's a packing industry in the plant. I believe it is Purdue. And he put a camera down his shirt and was like, hire me for this job. So he got a job at the slaughterhouse and worked there. He discovered some pretty severe accusations of racism that was occurring. There's a very specified hierarchy that is in these plants. White people get to work as supervisors. Native Americans and African Americans get to work as mechanics, and Mexicans get to work on the kill floor. The reason for this is that the jobs are well paying, but they're easy enough to get because the plant supervisors do not care about their workers' safeties. Undocumented immigrants in this country cannot afford to lose their job. They will lose their job if they speak up about the maltreatment that is occurring in the plants. They can't do that. So it continues. So not only are people and the animals that are being processed in these facilities in severe endangerment, but is our very environment itself. Currently, Cowspiracy, which is a 2014 political food science / agriculture industry documentary, it's very good, you should watch it, found some pretty horrific facts out. Our climate crisis, our top scientists are saying that at this point, if we don't change what we're doing, we're going to be facing an extinction like we have not seen since the dinosaurs. In our lifetime, 2050, that's the date that they're giving us right now. That's a problem. Our Earth's atmosphere contains 440 parts per million of carbon dioxide. The meat and dairy industry alone produces more than the entire transportation sector in America. That's trains, planes, cars, buses, submarines, maybe, boats, that sort of thing. Things that you go in and they take you places and spit pollution in the air. Cows make more than that. Livestock methane over CO2 is 80 times more destructive. So We have lots of cows because we like to eat cows. The cows produce lots of gas. It's in the air now. You just take it from one compartment and you put it in the other, and I mean, that's a problem. Secondly, we have water shortages here in America. It takes 660 gallons of water to produce 1 Quarter Pounder in McDonald's. That seems fake, right? It's not. Cattle are fed a primarily corn-based diet, which is really bad for them, and that's why our meat is so fatty. That's a different subject. Corn takes a lot of water to grow, but that water consumption moves up the food chain, and essentially 1 pound of beef takes 2,500 gallons to produce. The cattle rearing industry in the US uses 34 trillion gallons of water annually, and we've got water shortages, so maybe we should stop feeding our cows corn. Just a suggestion. 91% of the Amazon deforestation in the rainforest is due to accommodating farming. We're losing an acre per second in the Amazon, and that's because people are cutting down the trees so they can put more animals to produce, to be slaughtered, because the demand is so high for meat. And then the oceans. We don't put cows in the oceans are fine. You're wrong. Cows poop a lot. I come from a real small town, and we have lots of cows. Cows poop a lot. That's a bona fide fact, let me tell you. In our oceans, we have nitrogen-flooded dead zones because factory farms are not responsible for disposing of their waste properly. They just fill up pools of water and just dump crap in them and leave them. So when it rains too much, it just overflows, and then there's cow poop just flowing. And you know how water runoff works, right? Goes in the streams. Where do the streams go? The ocean. We have 95,000 nautical square miles of nitrogen-flooded dead zones. These zones in our oceans cannot support any life. We're destroying our planet. And partially, it is because of the meat industry. So what do we do about this? What does this mean? People need to eat food, obviously, but we need to be able to eat ethically and sustainably. I am not against meat. As I said, I come from a small town. Redneck, one might say. I do enjoy meat a lot. I'm not saying don't eat meat. If you don't want to eat meat, that's fine. You do that. But if you're going to eat meat, we need to not support factory farming. I'm not going to say that I don't support factory farming, because I do. I go to the store and get my lunch meat and eat it and feel fine about it. But that needs to stop. We need to be able to eat our food produced locally. We need to eat food that has been processed in an ethical way. We need to eat things that are sustainable. You can be aware of what's happening. This is why this is an uncomfortable subject. People don't want to know what's happening here. They don't want to say that, hey, Tar Heel, that's like 5 hours away. People don't want to think that this is happening there. It is, and we need to be aware of it. If we want to be able to continue supporting this meat economy, we need to do it in a way that is a little bit more healthy for the animals, the people, and the environment. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I like to talk. Yes?
Do you propose an alternative to corn? Or do you have an idea?
Unrealistically, grass, but we do not have enough land to grow the corn that we're feeding the cows, so we're not going to have any land to put the cows and the grass together. If we could feed our cattle grass, that would be great, but the demand for meat is too high, which is why corn is used, because the corn that is not up to grade for human consumption is fed to our cattle. Like, if you're driving and you see the corn that's wilty and brown and gross, people don't eat that. We feed it to our cows. Grass would be good. That's not going to happen, though. People like meat too much. Any other questions?
Is locally sourced food sustainable in any way? I mean, it got to factory farms for a reason, and I get that it's not great, but...
Right. It's not so much about global sustainability so much as individual practitioner. If you can start with yourself and, turn your lights off, turn the water off when you brush your teeth. If one day you're like, let's do meatless Mondays, If one day you're like, let's go to the farmer's market and buy our eggs there instead of going to the grocery store, and stuff like that. Honestly, we have too many people on this earth. We are destroying our planet, and we don't need to have this many human beings. Factory farming is there for a reason. It's because it needs to keep up with the demand. The demand is run by money, and the industry is run by money, and everything is run by money. So, it would be cool. Yes,
Are you familiar with the work of Temple Grandin?
probably, but I don't.
Yeah, she's the autistic designer.
Yes.
Of humane cattle chutes and facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Would that address, if facilities could be designed with her concepts in mind, would that be an adequate solution?
It would be a good start. We started in the late 90s, we started building our slaughterhouse corrals in circles because the animals would walk in a circle and not be able to see what was happening in front of them, and it would keep them calm, it would keep their heart rates down, it would bruise the meat less. It would, honestly, it's because it bruised the meat less, but it did help the animals, suffer less on their way to the track. I think if every farmer practiced farming as if that animal was an individual and not a number on a ledger, then that would be a good start too. But
Well, that's how Temple did it. Because
Right.
she could communicate with the cows. She had a special affinity for how she believed they thought and felt.
right, cows are great. They smell and they will lick you a lot, but they're good. I love them. Small town. Cool. Thank you.